Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Elliot Webber and welcome to episode 4 of BTCC What If Season 2. In this episode, kind of similar to the previous two, especially the previous episode that has just gone out on my channel at time of recording. Do go check that out. That one is obviously like the entirety of my channel. It's a great watch. So yeah, episode 4. In this episode, we are going to be seeing what if Colin Turkington never left the BTCC in 2009. So as always, let's get straight into this. Now, as we all know by now, Colin Turkington is a legend of the BTCC, racking up over 70 wins at time of recording, racking up 4 championships at time of recording. In my opinion, he is top 5 easily, one of the greatest of all time. In my personal opinion, don't get too angry if you disagree with me. You are fine to disagree with me. But whilst in 2024, Colin Turkington celebrated his 20th active season in the BTCC, we all know the Turkington name, especially Colin, has been around for well over 20 years in the BTCC, debuting in 2002 with Team Atomic Kitten, which was effectively the satellite MG team at the time, before moving on to MG, which was being run by West Surrey Racing, staying on at that team for the majority of his first tenure, apart from 1 year when he raced for Vauxhall in 2005. But at the end of 2009, the year he won his first championship, Colin unfortunately could not find a seat. This due to being his main sponsor, RAC, pulling out. At the end of 2009, it obviously meant Colin was not able to find a seat. I do believe he did go part-time in the World Touring Car Championship for a couple of years in 2010, 2011, and 2012. I do also believe he made some appearances in the Chinese Touring Car Championship, but I do think that was after he returned to the BTCC in 2013. So yeah, obviously for those 3 years in 2010, 11 and 12, there was no Colin Turkington in BTCC. So in this video, we are going to be seeing what would happen if he was in that WSRC. I don't think he would realistically go elsewhere. Maybe potentially go somewhere else. But in my opinion, I don't think Colin would have gone elsewhere. I honestly think if he was to go elsewhere, he would have gone to RML or the factory Chevrolet team alongside Jason Plato instead of who was actually there in real life, Alex McDowell. Yeah, I think it's a little bit more realistic just to say that he would stay at WSR for this 3-year tenure, in this 3-year scenario. Sorry. So yeah, I think we should just start off like that, starting off with 2010. Colin Turkington, obviously in this scenario, would be partnering Rob Collard as opposed to the man who would partner Rob Collard in real life, some guy called Andy Neat. Don't know what happened to him. Heard he was really good. So yeah, 2010, Colin Turkington and Rob Collard in this scenario. Colin would, of course, be carrying the number 1 as Jake Hill will next year, which was confirmed earlier. So, yeah, how would Colin perform? Again, I'm basing this off of the real-life performances of not just the car, but also Rob Collard. I'm not going to take in the performances of Andy Neat because comparing Colin Turkington to Andy Neat is an insult to both drivers, in my opinion. So yeah, it was a winless year in 2010 for WSR and Rob Collard and Andy Neat in real life. As for Colin, honestly, I do think he wins a couple of races. I don't think he'd be anywhere near the championship fight. I don't think he would successfully retain the championship. Obviously, I think, the Aon Fords of Chilton and Onslow Cole, the Chevy of Plato and McDowell, and the Honda of Matt Neal and Gordon Shedden. I think those 3 cars were just a little bit quicker. Plus, you had Motorbase Performance on the rise in the BMWs. You also had Paul O'Neill battling for wins and podiums in Honda Integra. So yeah, I think in 2010, I do think WSR were a little bit just caught up in the mix of it all, which is why I think if Colin stayed at WSR for 2010, I think he'd muster up 3 wins maximum. You know, I don't see Colin being in the championship fight, at least in this first year of BTCC, or in his first year staying on in 2010. So yeah, but I think the best Colin would have finished in the championship, probably the highest of maybe fifth, possibly sixth, because I do think it was a five-way championship fight going into that finale. I haven't watched the 2010 season review in a long time. I probably should have rewatched it, but I don't have it on DVD as of yet, so fingers crossed to get it for Christmas. So yeah, I do think in real life, I do think it was a five-way championship fight between Plato, the two Hondas, and the two Aeon Fords, as I mentioned earlier. So I think Colin, realistically, the best he could have finished was sixth at best. And that's honestly where I think he would have finished, 3 wins max, P6 in the championship. Not a terrible title defence, but obviously, you don't want to be P6 after winning the championship the previous year. So now let's move on to 2011. So year 2 of this scenario, 2011, and this would be the first year of the iconic eBay Motors BMW livery cars. This was around the time I first started watching BTCC, and whilst I was sort of forced to support Honda and Team Dynamics by my dad, a decision I don't regret making, I'm Honda till I die. Simple. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, this was the first season of watching BTCC for me. So yeah, obviously we still had the Chevys, we still had the Hondas, we still had the Aeon Fords, we had Andrew Jordan's Vauxhall Vectra. Motorbase had moved to Ford Focuses. I believe they were LPG powered as well. And of course, not only that, we had the now iconic eBay Motors BMWs. Of course, as well, 2011 will be the first ever year of the NGTC spec touring car. Obviously, not a lot of them. I believe only a Toyota Avensis and the Audi A4 were NGTC cars that year. I believe there was only 2 cars on the grid for NGTC spec in 2011. But of course, I'm getting sidetracked. So yeah, again, in real life, it wasn't the best of seasons for WSR. At the time, they still had the BMW 3 Series. I can't remember what the model, the make was. At the time, the BMW 3 Series that was being used by WSR was old at this point. I think this was their 5th season of using it from 2007 onwards. So yeah, the car was aging a lot. And in real life, their lineup was Rob Collard and Nick Foster. Rob Collard, as we know, still a great driver, but never really a championship level driver. I don't think he was ever good enough to win a championship. I say that now. He is a 2-time British GT champion, but as a touring car driver, I don't think he was ever that close to getting a championship. I don't think he was ever going to be one, though he did come close a few times, so props to him for that. And Nick Foster, obviously, wasn't that good, wasn't great, only 1 career podium to his name. But obviously his sons, Louis and Harry, are doing very well. Louis Foster is currently is going to be on his way to IndyCar next year, and Harry Foster has just completed a successful season in the Porsche Carrera Cup. Anyway, so comparing Collard and Foster's real life performances is how we're going to judge how well Colin would have done. Once again, I think Colin would have been the better of the two, that being himself and Rob Collard in the scenario. I think, again, a couple of race wins, 2 at a max or 2 at a minimum. Obviously 1 at a minimum, because that's the minimum wins you can get in a season. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't see Colin performing very well, purely for the fact that the age of the car and the fact that 2011 was once again pretty poor for WSR. They were once again a midfield team. Obviously, that could just due to the fact being that the Fords were a little bit faster. Obviously, the factory Chevy was quick naturally, and of course, the Honda team Dynamics, they brought in the NGTC spec engine, plus that was turbocharged, which meant they were just rapid. I wasn't complaining, obviously, as a Honda fan. But yeah, so another not poor season, but a mediocre season by WSR standards. Obviously, at this point, they are a championship winning team. So yeah, again, as for Colin, I think maximum 2 wins, at best 7th in the championship, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's it's obviously it's really difficult to say, but that's just how I think Colin would have done. I think maybe he could have got into the top 5. But yeah, I mean, I just think with the age of the BMW at the time, I just don't see Colin being that successful in it. But anyway, let's move on to year 3, 2012. So year 3, the final year in this scenario, 2012, once again, Colin would be partnering up with Rob Collard and Tom Onslow Cole in this scenario. In 2012, in real life, the eBay Motors sponsored BMW cars would be expanding to a 3-car operation. In real life, the lineup was Rob Collard, Tom Onslow Cole and Nick Foster. Obviously, in this scenario, Collard Turkington will be replacing Nick Foster. Now, from 2012, this was my first proper full season of watching BTCC. I remember the eBay Motors cars were actually quite rapid. Rob Collard won multiple races. Tom Onslow Cole won, I believe, 2 races that year. Obviously, Nick Foster wasn't that successful. But, you know, in the early stage of the season, Rob Collard was an early championship contender. Obviously, he wouldn't be in that championship contention come the end of the season, as obviously, once again, Team Dynamics and Honda brought in an NGTC Civic, and MG made their long-awaited return with an MG6 being piloted by Jason Plato and some bloke called Andy Neat in 2012. So yeah, so for 2012, how do I think Colin would have done? Given how the eBay Motors BMW was so much better in its swan song season, I think that Colin would have been an outsider for the championship, kind of similar to his 2013 return year in real life, where he had won races, he was a front runner pretty much off the bat, but he wasn't in a realistic chance of the championship. So yeah, I think Colin at best would finish 4th, is what I'd put him at best. I don't think he would have beaten Shedden, Plato or Neil, which were the top 3 in 2000 and in 2012, with Shedden obviously taking that title. I think maybe Turkington could have beaten AJ, Andrew Jordan, in the championship, because I think Andrew Jordan finished 4th that year, because he also had an NGTC Honda Civic. Yeah, I think out of the 3, this would be Colin Turkington's best season in BTCC in this scenario. So yeah, overall, I think he'd take about 7 or 8 wins across this 3-year period. You know, best championship finish of 4th out of this 3 years. And then, of course, moving on into 2013, the real life events would take place where he'd come back, be a championship contender in every single year he took part in. Obviously, winning the title in 2014, winning the title in 2018, winning the title in 2019, and then, of course, so on and so forth. So yeah, that is basically it, guys. That is what if Colin Turkington stayed at WSR, or in fact stayed in the BTCC in 2009. Of course, as you know, I don't think Colin would have been a champion due to the fact of WSR not really having the machinery to do so, because of course they had, as I mentioned, an aging BMW, but still Colin, I think, would have been a race winner and an outsider for the championship in 2012. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. What do you think would have happened if Colin Turkington stayed in the BTCC in 2010, 2011 and 2012? Of course, if you're new around here, be sure to like this video, share with your mates as well, because it of course does help my channel grow, and of course press that red subscribe button, because we are firmly on the road to 300 subscribers. I'm getting closer and closer each day. I hope to have 300 by the end of 2024. So we've only got about 2 months to do so. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see all of you in the next one. Goodbye.